friends, welcome to the Normalizing Average podcast. Join us as we dive into the stories behind the people who have overcome setbacks to achieve success, celebrating the average moments on the path to extraordinary results. Let's go.
Okay, welcome back everybody to another episode of Normalizing Average. I'm Amy and this is my co-host Eve. And today we're chatting with Fred and Dana Orndorff, owners of Rumpus Beer Company. Rumpus first opened its doors in June 2019, and you'll find a unique, warm, and community-focused brewery. Fred has been brewing for over 15 years, acquiring his brewing diploma from the IBD out of London, England. After getting his start in Crested Butte, moving to Canmore, and eventually settling in Revelstoke, it has always been Fred's dream to create a simple, fresh-tasting beer without the headaches of packaging and distribution. Brewing what he wants, when he wants, this brewery already has a cult following and no end in creative flair. So welcome, Fred and Dana.
Thank you.
Welcome, Fred and Dana. Woo!
Thanks so much. Yeah, joining us from your brewery. And so we'll just jump right in. And if you could tell us sort of what the history that has led you up to where you are today. You can go back as far as you need to. What's relevant to the history of the brewery.
Let's go all the way back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, do it.
How long we got? No.
until your bike appointment.
2 days later. No.
Yeah.
In June of 2019, when we finally opened, moving to Revelstoke and opening a brewery had been the plan for 20% of my life.
Okay.
Which was crazy to really do the math and figure that out. But, that whole plan involved like getting to Canada and being allowed to work here. And so there were a lot of things to deal with along the way. The idea was to be small like this and just a fun spot that was like, beer is what we make, but the vibe and community feel is the product kind of. We wanted to create that aspect, and beer was just a great way to get there.
Okay. And so you are from the States originally.
Yeah.
And you sort of started brewing with a company down there as well.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I think I started home brewing and then got my start as like a paid brewer in Crested Butte while I was living there.
And then he met this tiny angel when I was on a ski trip in Crested Butte. And we were long distance for 2 years. And I was like, I guess we'll just break up because this isn't ever going to work. But he's like, no, I got a job in Canada. And I was like a brewing job? And he's like, yeah, I got a job. And I was like, well, where? Like, you got a job? He's like, well, I saw it posting and it's mine. And I was like, okay, like this isn't gonna work, but sure, crazy guy.
You said, do you have a resume? I said, well, I do now.
Yeah.
Who proofread it? What?
Fred doesn't have a resume. He doesn't even have like a real house. He just lived above a garage. I was like, this is a nightmare. But he did get a job at the Grizzly Paw, and that was just his foot in the door to come to Canada to get a work permit. Yeah. So we both moved to Canmore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just prior to that, we had decided we would live in Canada, and we drove all around BC. Well, Canmore, Banff, Golden, Revelstoke, and then down through like Vernon and
Kelowna.
Well, yeah, everywhere, looking where we wanted to live. And
Roslyn, Fernie.
We knew Fred wanted to have a brewery, and I was like, okay, I know nothing about business, so whatever, let's do it. I don't understand this, but sure. And we chose Revelstoke like about 6 years before we lived here. 9 years.
May 2010.
May 2010, we decided we wanted to move here and try to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was it about Revelstoke that got you guys?
In May 2010, I don't know if you were here then, but there was pretty much nothing going on, I don't think.
Yeah.
It was very chill. Everyone was super friendly. Like we rolled in to visit a friend of Dana's, and we're like right into a potluck in someone's living room.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it felt like a close-knit community. It really reminded me of what Crested Butte had been like. And I thought, this is the spot. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is such a good mix of that mountain town, small town. It hasn't blown up. Well, at the time, for sure. And this like epic world-class skiing. I know you guys are skiers too, and amazing biking. So yeah, it is. I could see those. I think that's probably the appeal that everybody finds. They're like, okay, it's this special mountain spot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I know, Dana, you're also a nurse. So was that a factor coming here as well, having a hospital that could?
You know, Amy, thanks for asking. It wasn't that, but I didn't realize how difficult it would be to get into nursing here. Yeah. It was like one of the other challenges, but I feel like you can get a job in Revelstoke as a nurse, but getting a position, it took me 4 years to get a position here, like a permanent line. And it was a huge struggle, and I had to work all sorts of spots and do all sorts of back and forth. I did still drive back to Canmore to nurse an emergency there because I wanted to keep doing that. And you make way more money in Alberta nursing. And we needed money because Fred was working on the business. So I kind of worked as much as I could wherever I could, and then trying to get my foot in the door here. And so, yeah, I've just had my permanent position for, I guess, just over a year now at the hospital, which is great. But I feel like all along the way, when Fred got into Canada and we were like, oh yeah, we're going to move to Revelstoke, and now Fred's in Canada and we'll just get our residency and everything's so easy. Like, that's delusional. Like, it was so hard. Fred struggled like from the get-go because the Grizzly Paw really, I mean, although it gave him a lot of tools and he learned a lot there, I mean, I'll let him speak to that, but it was a struggle because that's exactly the type of brewing he didn't want to do. He doesn't want to be like, we have a SKU on a shelf, we're going to make a beer to fill that SKU and we need to promote that beer and that's what we're doing. He wants to be like, I don't know, let's try this beer and switch that up and not always be fitting into a square box. I feel like Fred doesn't fit really into any sort of square box. At
the time, a lot of it was just culture shock of, you know, like I was the only brewer at a tiny place. Like if we were sending beer out to somebody, I was rolling a keg down the sidewalk to a restaurant. It wasn't like, and you know, like, hey, this is a neat idea, let's make that beer. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa, these people want to tell me when I show up and leave? Holy, and I just make the same 4 beers over and over? Oh my God, this is factory work. But in the end, it was a super valuable experience. They did this huge expansion while I was there. I learned a lot about the business side of things, and
So run us through where the start of Rumpus was conceptualized, like even down to the name, which is like so creative, and like the names of your beers, which I'm sure like you're probably tired of talking about, but even just like, you know, where did it start? How did you acquire your business? You know, run us through that program.
Well, luckily we were super naive, and you know, like
the key to a lot of success is that.
There's definitely been times looking back, like if I had any idea it would be like this, I don't know that I would have had the energy to start.
Yes.
At some point
I couldn't have gone into it expecting it to go the way it went and felt okay about like, okay, here we go.
I was like,
tighten your shoelaces.
Do you think someone's conspiring against us? I was like, do you think maybe somebody doesn't want us to open this brewery and like they're creating these hurdles? I was like delusional. Because things, when we started, when did we start working on it? We moved here in
2016. And that was the beginning of like, okay, I guess we need a spot where it's going to go. And meanwhile, like getting quotes on equipment and from suppliers and figuring out what the budget was going to be. And then figuring out, okay, so we need that much money. Where's that going to come from? And, you know, it was a constant like, hey, here's something. This might work out great. Oh, that's not going to work at all. Oh, what about this building that looks like it's falling down? I bet we can get it for cheap. Like, how are we going to buy a building? That's ridiculous. And then just kind of lucked into this location. And like our landlord here, I don't think you could ask for a better landlord.
No.
So that all has worked out great. And it was there were like all sorts of setbacks in terms of like the planning department was not in a great state of health at that time. like this is one room. I think we met 6 different building inspectors during the 15 months before we got open. Plus you're dealing with
like
provincial, federal regulations and all kinds of different
Health
license
and safety. Yeah.
issues that needed certain specific inspections to be considered real. And yeah, there was definitely like, as we got close to the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm going to pull another $3,000 off of the personal line of credit to cover rent this month. Hopefully we don't do that again. And then you do that 4 times in a row. You're like, I said, hopefully we don't do that again.
I think as far as like positive things and pitfalls, like it's interesting because I mean, we know lots of breweries and brewers, and you hear about other breweries, and you hear about them setting up and starting, people saying, I want to start a brewery, and they're not a brewer, or they don't have a brewery. They're just interested, they enjoy breweries, etc. And I think that that's so wild in my mind. I know that they're successful, some are successful, and that's awesome, but like I think to myself about the things that Fred knew because he was a brewer. And like for setting up the room and the equipment, all the way down to like having an idea of what type of beer he wanted to make. So I think we had that component when we were starting our business. We didn't have the businessman involved, and we talked about whether we would, like, do we get a partner, and what do we want to do, and how, like, what's going to work best for us, and what makes us nervous, and do we, I guess our biggest the thing that made us most nervous was that we would get a businessy partner, and then they would have an idea of what type of beer they would like brewed, and it would have some sort of fruit added, and Fred would flip his lid and be like, this is so, like, let's throw some mango in there, and Fred would be like, I hate you, and we would have an explosion, and we'd blow this whole room up, and just be like, I'd rather it burn, that's what I see Fred doing. So we decided, wow.
Yeah, or he'd be like the SKU on the shelf guy. That's like, what are our SKUs? This is the model. That's gonna
be the business move. It's
that's
still
the
like
business move.
If it works, make as much as possible and get it out there.
Yeah. Like people still pressure us with that. Like they're like, oh, are you guys gonna distribute, or like, what are you doing for that? What are you pushing for that? What's your next hurdle in the business? And I think, hopefully we align with this, but like we're not world domination people. We're not going for $1 zillion and we're going to be the biggest beer out there. Like our goals are to have enough money to like live here in this community that we love. And I have a job as well. And I mean,
be able to buy a bike when you need one.
Yeah, we want new bikes. We want a new bike. And we want to make, like Fred wants to make really good beer that everybody in the community wants to drink. And we want this to be like fun, and we want people to want to come to Rumpus to hang out with their pals, and we don't need to have a spot in the competitive beer race, but I want people to speak and think respectfully of us in the beer community.
So is there would there be, I guess, like levels of operating a craft brewery where you would have, so you guys are, where you would move on to kind of like professional distribution? You'd find distributors, they would then start to market and pump out at different locations, beer stores, etc. Is that kind of like the next level up? But in that sense, you would need to have those, like, here's our staple, we're going to make this until the end of time, and people will learn to know it. That's kind of like that phase. I really like the idea of keeping this creative process and this agile, which I think, like this agile creative process, which I think staying small and avoiding that, I don't know what you would call it, that SKU level, the permanent beer level, would probably force you into. Yeah,
I mean, there's like, to make that step into packaging and doing it well is like the brewery that we think of as the brewery then becomes like this little corner of the building, and it's really just a giant packaging facility.
Yeah.
Like it's really easy to make great beer and ruin it when you package it, and no one ever knows it was great because by the time they open a bottle or can, it's oxidized or just old. It's at a loading dock somewhere for 2 months before it got back into a refrigerator and no one noticed.
Crazy. And as another element that, like, yeah, like if I were to go tomorrow and be like, I want to open up a brewery, there's so many unknown unknowns
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
you can get into. Yeah, if you didn't have any idea what you were doing, like any profession. Sorry. Okay, so you're working with the city, you're working within the bureaucracy,
Uh-huh.
and then what happens? How long does it take you from kind of start application process to opening the doors? 2016 to 19?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a long time.
When you put it that way, it seems ridiculous.
We had a good friend from Canmore, one of the docs I work with. You know, we were lucky because they just love Fred's beer, because he was brewing all the time in Canmore. Like for our wedding, we had 16 beers on tap. Like Fred had made
like a keg of each in the backyard.
And he had made 12 different beers, and his other brewer friends made 4 beers, and we just had like all these jockey boxes. It was insane. And so Fred was always making beer, and everybody, because he was making those beers for the shelves, he was like coming home to make beer for him and for his friends, just to have that creative side. And so our friends were always drinking beers. One of the doctors I worked with was like, what do you guys need? Like, I got some cash, you know, can I be your loan? I need to put some money somewhere. And we're like, okay, geez, are you for real? I think we were at like a beer fest or something, and she's like, yeah.
We were.
So we were lucky that she lent us. We're like, okay, we'll take, you know, a bunch of cash. So let's do this. So that was the only real investment that we needed, and they just wanted the investment of the, you know, making a bit of money off that cash. And then whenever I go to town, I bring them beer and swag. It's like an amazing thing. So we were like scrimping by, got all the crap done. And I mean, Fred wasn't just doing like the businessy stuff and setting up the brewery. Fred did like this room with our friends, like carpentry. He did all the building. He did like a lot of pulling the wires with our friend, or did the electrical, but like everything from woodworking to electrical, plumbing, setting up the business. We had a really good brander, Catherine.
Designer.
Oh yeah, Catherine Whiteside, right? Yeah. And she did our designs, but now Fred's also done some graphic design in his past, so he mixes all the colors and he does all the bits and bobs as far as putting those together for the room. And we do it together, but lots of it is Fred's creativity. So we finally got all that together, and I feel like it was like took so long, and then all of a sudden it was just like, holy crap.
We had the health inspector was here.
Yeah.
And she's like, everything seems fine. Like, what do you mean seems fine? Like, she's like, you could open. Like, I'll finish the paperwork when I go back to the office.
Yeah, we didn't believe her. We're like, what do you mean? And she's like, you're okay to open. We're like, no, like, we'll do it. We'll open. And she's like, yeah, that sounds good. And we're like, well, we're going to open on the 15th.
Fine, we'll do it.
She's like, okay, good.
Just watch us. We're going to go do it. Here we go. Unlock the door.
And like all the way down to the last second where our friggin' dishwasher was like, remember, it was overheating, and we were like, oh my God, we got to run the dishwasher in front of the lady. Like every single thing that could be a challenge was a challenge. And then it made temperature. Like we were watching the dishwasher make temperature. So it had to get to like 90 or something.
So 180 for
180, sorry, 180. I don't know anything. Anyways, had to get to 180, and we're like standing with the girl like, it always gets to 180. That thing is always doing it. The night before it couldn't, and we were just like, oh my God, this is a mess. But yeah, then she said we could open. Yeah. And we were like, okay, then we'll open.
We like, that all seemed like struggle while it was happening, but like had it worked out the ideal way where like we just show up and 2 weeks later doors are open, everybody would have been like, who are these people and why are they opening a brewery in our town? Mm-hmm. But because of all that, we had a whole bunch of people that felt like, it wasn't like, hey, you guys did it. Yeah. It was like, hey, we did it.
Yeah.
And they felt like they were part of the struggle. They were part of all of it. And that was great. That's probably why it worked. Like, we had people on lawn chairs outside the front door when we unlocked it, just waiting.
Yeah. That was nice. But yeah, like so many of our friends helped, like literally building, painting, coming in, even just down to like people that would walk by the street and open the door and be like, hey, Fred, like they didn't know Fred before. They'd be like, he'd be like, oh yeah, I'm putting in a brewery. And then by like 3 years later, they're like, hey, Fred, like what's going on now? You know, like the hype was a 3-year period of building a community and a following. And then the anticipation of that was, I think, added huge to trust, you know, like you got to trust and believe and want to go and support like your local brewery and business.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. And you guys did a really good job too. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Amy.
What would you say you're most proud of at this point?
Fred.
Yeah.
Most proud of is, I guess, that people love it, and we have regulars, and they're like, I didn't used to go out in town. I would go to house parties or have people over for dinner, but I never went out because it seemed like going out meant you had to get in a fight somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, like the local following.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys did such a good job of posting your story and sharing your story on social media too. Like I remember following that it's like, okay, we're here, we are drilling, here we are painting, here we are doing this, here's things that have arrived, like we're taking a ski day over here. So we really as a community got to know who you are and follow your journey, which I think really helped too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, I was like, when did we go skiing? But mostly Fred.
There's like one picture.
Superimposing him in. Yeah, Fred and I on another day, just the lucky cardboard. No, we did do some, but I feel like small business. I remember being in the med room with Christina Hartley, or Godfrey now, I guess. They do Stoke, her husband Stoke Roasted. And I remember her being like, and that's when I first moved to Revelstoke. This just popped into my mind, and her being like, or me saying, I'm opening a brewery with my husband. We're going to do a small business. And I remember her saying, okay, you know, like, yeah, do you know what that's about? And I'm like, I don't know anything, you know, like, I'm a moron. What are you talking about?
Like, here's a marriage counselor.
Yeah, she was right. And I mean, she wasn't saying anything negative. She was just like, okay, girl, you know, like she's so sweet. And she was just like, it's a lot of work. And I could tell from that I was like, you know, oh, what is she talking about? And now I know, like, it's insane. Like, what are you even doing? And like, I'm like Fred's sounding board, and I'm like the bits and bobs and can I help with this and that? But a lot of it is, well, the majority of everything is Fred. And so it's just a lot of pressure on one person. When I was listening to your podcast about like how you had to kind of decide to let some things go. When we opened it, like for how many, 2 years, it was just us serving.
We
had Ashley.
We're a year into having staff, so
yep.
2 years of Ashley and Chris.
Ashley and Chris.
We always work
had
with
somebody
them.
do patchy things, but we always worked with them. So we're a year into having staff, and it's like a whole new world. But hearing Fred talk about it sometimes about letting things go, which I'm bad at myself, and him talk about, you know, our staff are amazing. We have like incredible bartenders. We need to hire a couple more, but the 2 that we have are insanely good. And when Fred talks about them doing something that he would do slightly different way, and he's like, but you know what? Like, it gets done, and it's
the important thing is I'm not doing it.
Like those lessons, like letting it go. It's like, we don't have kids, you know, so like this is our baby, but like it's like learning to let somebody babysit your child, or to like look after something that you care for so much. That's a huge learning, and I feel like Fred's just kind of getting there and starting to realize that he needs to let go of some of those things that he's had such control over. So that's a big learning, I think, in small business. Like when you get to the point where you need to branch out and have that support group and have people come in and help you with your business. When I was listening to your podcast, I was like, oh yeah, she's like, I see that in Fred when we get staff, like letting someone else take over and do something maybe slightly different than
But it's great because then, like, I've realized also, like, wow, they're better at this than I was.
Yeah.
They're friendlier.
It's way easier to be friendlier when you haven't been here since 6 a.m. all day.
Yeah.
it's 11 o'clock at night and you're like, this guy better not come in here. Trade money for beer. The nerve.
Better not want a beer. Like,
oh God, am I resenting the customers for showing up?
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly it. Like, that's the biggest thing that building a team can give you is you do your thing and you do your thing so well, but you can't expect any business owner to be good at doing and to be the best at doing all the things. So in an ideal world, you bring on these people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And then now you're free. Like, that weight is off your shoulders to worry about the burden of being also like the constant front of house customer rep. And you can show up as your best self because you've done your most favorite thing that you want to do in your business, hopefully all day. And at your choosing too, right? It gives you freedom and flexibility to say, okay, I don't, maybe I can serve some beer now, but like, I don't have to.
Yeah.
You guys are here to do it, but I can jump in, I can help, I can support. But yeah. And then do you find that when you started hiring people, then having them be a fit for you would have been so critical because they're representing everything you've built and everything you've worked for. And if they misrepresent that, it's like, it'd be a soul crime.
So far, we're sticking with hiring from our customer base. Like,
yeah.
We interviewed a bunch of people. We're like, these two seem great, and they've been in here. Like, they come and they enjoy it, so they're already on the team.
Yeah,
perfect.
Start paying them, and they'll work.
They're like, can you just pay me right in beer?
So now that you're in the day-to-day operations, like the flow of that, what does your day-to-day look like?
Me?
3C.
Yeah.
Like, best day of the week is when I get in here at 5 a.m. on a brew day. And that's, just in order to be out of here and cleaned up by the time we open. And that's, the making of the beer, the realization of concepts. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like the brewery needs a little bit of attention every day. It's like a dairy farm where it's not sleeping back there. Something needs something.
Yeah.
And then there's always, like there's been a bunch of stuff we're trying to expand into next door here. And that it's basically the entire starting process over again, which is
frightening.
You're like, oh, I should have learned more. But so it seems there's always extra projects. Plus there's just an enormous amount of admin work that is it's all designed for much larger things. Like, for example, every time we take a keg out of the cooler and put it in the kegerator, we basically sold it from Rumpus Beer Company, the manufacturer, to Rumpus Beer Company, the on-site store and lounge. And the province gets 42 cents, I think it is now, a liter of markup just to let us do that. Like, most of the regulatory agencies are of the, I want to say of the opinion, I don't think they think it's an opinion. Like, it's their beer, they let me make and sell it for them. But like everything has some way where they're getting their cut out of it. But it involves me doing a bunch of paperwork to say that I've given them their cut correctly. So there's a lot of that. We're selling merch, designing t-shirts and hats and picking colors for things. There's always, in an ideal world, there's always an event coming up that we got to get ready for. We're doing the market again this summer, and that really we fill these crowlers for the market, and that takes a day a week just to fill them, and then the day a week of being there. And then, I'm still coming to terms with this, like, no one's going to give me a day off. I have to do that. And it won't be when all the work is done, because like, that's closing day. Like, there's always gonna be a list of stuff to get done, but you just have to come to terms with, like, that can wait. We're gonna go ride bikes so that we're real people.
And is that a big wrestle for you? Do you what's the inner dialogue, or how do you manage that?
I kind of I joke about, Like, I think COVID saved my life because that forced the pause. You know, we were just flat out, like 80 hours a week at least, being in here doing everything, and all of a sudden everything stopped, and like there was that, you know, the stress level rises because you're like, what? Now what? No one's allowed in the room. How do we move all this beer?
Yeah.
But you're like, oh, this is my cat. This is my backyard.
Yeah.
I forgot about all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was nursing and then also bartending. I was doing 2 jobs because Fred couldn't do all the brewing, all the everything without me taking a big. I was probably bartending more than you a bit for a while. I am a better bartender. Highest tips over here. But, you know, like when you're good, right? You got it. But COVID, it stopped, and so I think after that, when we got going again, I was taking a step back because I was just burnt out because nursing during that time, although I was fortunate to work in Revelstoke with COVID because I can't even imagine working in a large center, but I was pretty over everyone, like humans in general, just because it's a stressful time to be at the front line of that. And I took a step back from bartending and nursing so much, and then I started covering bits and bobs, and then we got staff because we kind of went into summer where COVID was getting down, and we had the patio, and we were like, we can't do this. We can't do a patio without people because there's the law that you can't carry your beer across the sidewalks. It's not licensed. So there's that, because then it forced us to be like, we need humans to carry those beers across the sidewalk because we need someone inside as well. So it kind of forced our hand to get some staff. And that was kind of just as we were allowed to, open a little bit more with COVID. So we hired staff, and I kind of stepped back more. So that was, COVID did save our life, I guess. Yeah. That was good.
And so from that came the lessons of things like, take a day off.
Yeah, take a day off. Go for a bike ride. Also, I nag a lot. Let's go. You gotta do this.
That's why.
That's why you have a wife.
Exactly. You got someone that's constantly like, let's go have fun. You're like, why? How could this be a problem?
Yeah.
When Dana says have fun, go have fun. She's right.
It's like, let's do it. You never do this. Let's go. Yeah.
Have you guys grown and changed a lot as a couple running a business together?
I feel like there was, probably, to make the parenting analogy again, like we stopped having any identity outside of the business. I still struggle with that, I think.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of planed out and the business is running and just normal, and we're like, oh yeah, this is fun. Like we're people and we love each other and we hang out together.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. I think, I think it's hard to be like your partner. I don't know. I was going to just make up some sort of sob story just there about how hard it is. But I love Fred. We're best friends, and I love spending time with him. If anything, it was like the lack of time. If he was always here or busy, I guess I missed that. But, and Fred is a super circular thinker. So in our relationship, I knew that already. He thinks of an idea and then he just really comes back to it 1,000 times from 1,000 different ways. And I'm like, you just said that. Why don't we just do that? And he's like, well, I'll think about it for 75 years and then we'll get it figured out. And I'm like, oh my God. So all those decisions are coming back to me, and I knew he had the answer. So it's throughout our relationship, it's been just I just need to be kind of supportive of it. I don't have the information to make the decision for him. I just need to be there to listen and for him to sound it off me and keep doing those types of things. So
witness the struggle.
Yeah, witness his struggle, which a lot of it was me witnessing his struggle and me just being like, oh my God, someone's trying to take you down, because I'm so protective of him and proud of him, that I just was like, why won't they just let my Freddie open his business? Those bad guys, idiot. So I think it's hard because I had to see him struggle and doubt and be nervous about things like that. But I think it's okay. We don't have all the same time and fun and footloose and fancy free that we had when we just had our set jobs, and there's always something that kind of takes, you know, Fred's attention from me, and I'm a real attention needer, but
Rumpus is like a second wife.
yeah.
They both need a lot of attention.
Yeah, but I realize that.
As long as they don't get jealous of each other, we're okay.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, it is hard, and yeah, there's tons of struggles, but I think if you're not like with your, like if you were in a relationship where it's more of just like a not best friendship, it would be impossible. You couldn't do it.
Well, because it sounds like too, the role, like having these two different roles, whether you realize them or not, or they've come to like full fruition, but being that support person, that cheerleader person, that person who understands Fred's process and the process that he's going through, and having trust and faith and knowing that, hey, okay, we're going to make it. That's extremely valuable, especially when you're starting a business and you're grinding through all these different things, these different elements, from the building issues to the bureaucracy to the financial stress. That like that role, I think can't be, what's the word, like understated enough of how important it is. Yeah. And would allow Fred also to, at the times when he probably needs it, to keep going and to know that, we'll make it.
Yeah.
And I always knew we'd make it because Fred's beer is great. Like
I was going to say because I'm incredibly stubborn.
Yeah, you are. Like that's
Maybe this is the key to success: stubbornness. Amazing beer.
Like I knew he had good beer from my perspective. When I met him in Crested Butte, and I was like, you know, who's this brewer? This cute little guy with a notebook who's quite artistic, and you know, I never have to pay for drinks. So I'm like, what a great. You know? Like, I don't even know where the cash register is in this place. I love it. Like, I just knew that everybody always, like, Fred is such a good friend, a good community member. Everybody always is just like so glad to have him around, and his beer is so good, and people believe in him because he's like, that's who he is. He'll never let you down.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so sweet. Dana's doing the pumping action, and Fred is growing taller.
Remember, what were we doing?
We were constantly annoying all our friends with,
So
what about this idea? What about this? What about this?
Right.
And they'd be like, oh, what about this? No. Why are you asking them?
Yeah.
And yeah, like probably a year of that.
Yeah, no
just
idea.
Constantly trying to figure it out. And nothing quite felt right, because it was like we wanted to be welcoming and fun, but like we take the beer seriously, but not ourselves, and just all these different ideas of trying to give it a sense of place, or like all kinds of things. And then in the end, like when you think of the logo that we have now, it's basically just a word that's been embellished. And knowing that was going to be the case, you like, not only does it have to be a fun word, like even just like you don't want too many like letters that hang down or are big, or you know, like the shape of the word. And then
it's that circular thinking you're talking about. We just saw it. We just witnessed it.
Know what's going on in there? What?
That's so good.
And then like Rumpus, like a Rumpus room, like in your grandparents' basement, where like on the one hand, it's where you send the kids to go have fun after dinner, but there's probably also a bar in the corner, and like the adults hang out there when the kids are asleep. And like Revelstoke in general felt like where you send the kids to go play to get them out of your hair for the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
That's so perfect.
Yeah.
I think you came up with it, and I was like, oh yeah, my cousin used to, you know, beat me with, like when we were playing spoons in the basement or playing some sort of card game, and I would get beat up in the rumpus room all the time. I like that. That's great.
And then the beer company part goes back to what we started talking about with like Rumpus Brewing. Brewing is an industrial process, you know, that's like has a whole different image, where beer is just this social lubricant vehicle for community building. And so we were more
brewing's work, but beer's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And do you have a, oh, sorry, I cut you off if you want to add to that.
The beer names, that's just, we've been collecting names like in a notebook for years, like longer than we've been open.
Okay. That is so fun to see
Yeah.
what is new on your list. Like I came in the other day and there was 8 Drake and I was crying. I was crying. And then Dana like flipped her hair and she's like, yeah, it's a mullet. And it's just so creative and fun. And that adds to the vibe that you are going for. Do you have a beer that's on tap that like stays stationary that you always want to offer, or is it always fluctuating? And is there a fan favorite?
We've got 2, I think, that are now pretty standard. But one is the house beer, which is a Brett Saison. I want to talk about it and not geek out about it. So let me focus.
You're safe here.
It has a secondary fermentation with a bunch of yeasts that make it funky. And it's kind of presented in the beer world as like, ooh, this is fancy and awesome, because it takes a long time and it's delicious. And it like kind of harkens back to Belgian traditions and just really kind of revered things in the beer world. But people like us have this fear of beer ceasing to be a beverage of the people and becoming more wine-like. And, you know, like if I talked about this Brett Saison to customers the way I think about it, they'd be like, oh, that sounds like too much for me. That's a little complicated. Like my palate doesn't do, like whatever, you know. But really it's just delicious. And there's no reason, you know, it's like putting cheese on a burger. Like, well, of course I'll try that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
But part of its character comes from, we don't package an entire batch into kegs. We leave like a quarter of it behind and then start the next batch into that, kind of like a sourdough starter, but in reverse. So like what's on tap right now is batch 2. It has batch 1 as part of it. Batch 3 will have 1 and 2, and we're just going to do that forever. So like batch 100 has all 99 other batches down to a small amount that are part of it. So it'll constantly change and get its character from just what the weather was like, or, you know, like the first batch fermented during that really hot part of summer when it was like 40 degrees out last year, and we don't temperature control it at all. We just let it kind of do its thing because it's happy that way. Then the second batch was through the winter and it probably never got above 25 degrees. So that alone will change its character, and as the blend kind of matures and does its thing. So that's fun to just make something that's super awesome and technical and has all these different aspects going on, but it has the most boring name of any of them. And we just present it as, oh yeah, this is quite refreshing. You might like it. Mm-hmm. And if people are like, what is even going on here? I'll explain it in further detail and say, every brewery you go to, ask them if they have Brett Saisons, because that's what you like. They'll be like, who is this person and who taught them to say that? And then Space Nugs is one that, like the version of Space Nugs we opened with was, I think, 11 or 12. And it's one that I had done a bunch of times in the backyard. Anyone that had come over for a birthday party or a barbecue or something, we had Space Nugs on tap. And the plan was to constantly mix up everything, just to keep it interesting. And so many different people said, well, you're not going to change Space Nugs, though. Like, that'll always be around, right? And so it came and went, and, you know, we got enough of that feedback that now I try and keep it up there all the time.
Mm-hmm. And we won an award.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Tell us about that award, Dana.
Or whatever.
Tell us about your award-winning beer.
Yeah.
So good. So
that's the award that we're more interested in than any sort of like biggie wigs where there's a blind taste test and a bunch of nerds have glasses and they're like smelling for different like horse blanket and cat scratch, whatever they're getting taste wise. Like we want the award that's like, yeah, you know, local whatever. Larry thinks it's
people's choice.
He wants another one.
He wants another
all right.
one. Yeah.
Whatever we go for. It tastes like another.
That's awesome for us. So
yeah.
Seems like it's in alignment with your program. Yeah.
Totally.
So what's next for you guys? You mentioned expanding.
Yeah, like we'll be able to have twice as many seats and make twice as much beer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be able to do more fun things like have some live music in here sometimes.
Oh,
And
cool. Yeah.
like right now, that would be like a third of our capacity then.
Band.
And they're probably drinking for free. It's not a brilliant business move. But...
Yeah, we'll allow a 2-piece band only, just so capacity is low. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much. We want to do some more events like that Blue Heron Night of Music.
Yeah.
That's super fun.
So fun.
It's good to get out there and like it feels a lot like in here, except you're outside and there's 300 people instead of 30.
Yeah, and it feels nice when people are like, Rumpus, oh, you guys are here, great. You know, like that's the best. Like when they're like so glad to be drinking your beer at an event where you're so glad to be pouring beer for your friends that are running the event, and like you get to see like basically, you know, if anything happens in Revelstoke, you guys know every single person that lives here is there. So then you're like, this is fun, and you get a chat with everybody. Well, you don't get a chat when you're pouring beer, but you get to like
you get to see them
panic and try to make the right change and try to get it to work. And you're like, the cymbals, and Fred just keeps pouring, and your back hurts.
Yeah.
But we want to do more of those because those are so fun.
Yeah, but I don't know, we don't have any
World domination.
we're
That's
not
enough.
like we must grow to. If we're not growing, we're dead.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not always progress.
Yeah.
And we have this kind of level where I'm hoping we can just plane out, and it just
is what it,
yeah, then you just keep doing it, and then you're not thinking about what the next move is. You're like, ooh, this would be even more fun to make a beer like this. What about this kind of beer?
Yeah. I think for you, or
really
like
hunker down into the nitty gritty of it.
I think it'd be nice if Fred could do more of just like, he's so excited on a brew day, you know, like he's just so excited to do what he actually is, a brewer, not like an accountant and a janitor, like cleaning the bathrooms, and like cleanest bathrooms in Revelstoke, I will say, really tidy in there. Like, you know, when he can just come in and like brew and make something fun and be like, I'm so excited, and like for him to be able to feel a little bit more relaxed into that and just like really going for it with beer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you go about developing new beer recipes?
Like all sorts of stuff goes, like from like straightforward, you try another beer and you're like, whoa, that's interesting. What do they have going on there? I wonder if you could do that with this kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or like food inspiration sometimes of flavor combos, or just getting to know ingredients or process and thinking, what if I applied this to that? A lot of it is just putting things together in a different combination, like Legos.
Or chatting with other brewers. Like brewers are like, I didn't really understand this, but like a brewer and another brewer, you know, walk into a bar, just kidding. I don't have that joke, but on that's my next thing. But like they're like two little kittens, just like, oh my God, we love each other. And what are you doing? What's that? Oh my God. Like they're not like, you know, this is my recipe. They're like, this is how I'm doing it. I'm trying this. And have you tried this? Or
non-competitive.
Yeah, non-competitive. Like just
like we're all on the same team.
Yeah, you know, do you need this? Or how you doing with this? Or I'm struggling with this. Or I'm getting like that. And Fred has that. He is so close with his brewers he's worked with in the past. And like, you have a collab coming up with a brewer,
Jackknife in
Kelowna, which is fun. He's really nice, really tiny, small brewery there. And you chat with them sometimes. Like you'll be chatting with your little brewer friends about, oh, what are you doing? Oh, how did that turn out? Or how are you doing this? Or what do you think about this? And I feel like you sometimes get inspiration there too. And that's kind of neat. I didn't know that they were that close. I assumed it was like a competitive thing, but it's like a real community thing, which is great. You know, that's why I think it's strange if you open a brewery without a brewer, because you don't have that ingrained, like, these are my people. I love these guys. Like, I want to go and talk to them about this. You have this. Oh, this is my business. And like, it's my secret. And Fred always has to like temper me down with that. Like, we are under no like sort of idea that this will be the last brewery that opens in Revelstoke. I'm sure somebody somewhere is thinking of opening a brewery in Revelstoke. And I mean, scares me because I'm like, oh my God, you know, we're going to be poor. And
I hope it's next door.
Here. Yeah. You know, I've heard you know, like,
a buddy.
Yeah. So it's like, it's very interesting to learn that from a brewer, that it's not a business where you're like in a competition. It's something you're hiding and you keep all your little secrets. It's like wow, another guy. Oh, mate, I'm out of this malt. I could probably go borrow it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, like beer people, like if there was another brewery next door, it would just bring more beer people to the neighborhood. It wouldn't be like, oh, we're only going to check out this one. Like,
yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like going to the ski hill and there's one run you do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what about the runs? Let's check them out.
Yeah. Like we're like, oh yeah, Begbie's up on the thing, and Begbie sends people to us. And unfortunately, we haven't had like a real time. I don't think we've had time. This is Fred's first time he's like going to go somewhere to brew beer, but like to develop that relationship more. But like, I mean, Begbie's great. They've been here for years and years. So yeah, like it's an interesting industry that wants to support each other.
Well, and that's such an amazing way to look at it, because a lot of industries look at it like you're taking a piece of my pie or a piece of the pie. There's one pie, it's this size. Whereas it's so much better to look at it as, hey, we're just gonna make this pie bigger. Like there's no shortage of human beings on the planet, and especially human beings who are coming into craft brewery and enjoying it and really starting to appreciate it. And yeah, so it's like, okay, let's make this pie bigger. Let's continue to get it out there, and then that's going to be good for everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I've also accidentally applied that worldview to the non-brewing world. You know, oh, here's everything I know. What else can I do for you? And you're like, oh, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
That guy's not a brewer.
Yeah.
Fred would be like late for an appointment and see someone needing help with something and just give it all, you know, which I think you should just maintain that. Like when we're opening this, we faced some challenges where we didn't get what we wanted from relationships, or like Fred got burned on that because he came from a small community where he trusted everyone, and that's still in his nature, but he learned some lessons about just being a little smarter with that. But I think that you got to keep that, you know, like even if you get burned, you got to still just keep being open and giving, and you have to learn some crappy lessons, but I don't think that's things that you should stop doing.
No, not at all.
No, it's good. It's a good quality, you know, that naivete. That's through.
Yeah. So Eve, any more questions that come up at all for you?
No, we can drop our closing questions. Yeah, you want to hit them with it, Amy?
Yeah. The most average thing about you or your brewery?
My height.
Not my height.
Probably, as I age and gain experience, like there's all these things people tell you along the way, you know, like when you're in your 20s and someone in their 40s is like, you should stretch every day, you know, and like right up to like, you should save money, you know, like all these things where you're like, those idiots, that doesn't apply to me. And like all of that stuff is true, of course, you know, that's why they're trying to. And now I'm kind of getting around the corner of like, you want to tell people things, you're like, they're not going to listen to me. You're like, oh, just like everyone else, I have fallen into that trap of not listening to people who are just trying to make my life easier and better.
Yeah. That's good.
And that will go on forever. There's probably no way out of that.
Yeah.
Everybody does it. My most average, you know, I'm a pretty average cook. I'm okay, but Fred's better. So I can do a good pasta sauce, but like, and pancakes. But like I'm like okay, you're better. Like that's why I missed him all those years when he was working hard. I had to like cook, and I was like, what? I'm not supposed to. I'm just pretty average. Yeah.
And where can people find you? Where websites or social media?
Yeah, we're Instagram and Facebook when we have something to say.
Okay.
Rumpus Beer Co, I believe is the Instagram.
Yeah.
Great.
Revelstokebeer.com is our website, which is basically just tells you what's on tap right now.
Mm-hmm. Helpful.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
But really just showing up is the best way to find us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
208 First Street.
East.
Amazing.
We have our anniversary coming up.
Yeah,
so
3
everybody
years.
should come to that. 3 years.
Whoa. What's the date on that?
June 15th.
Okay.
Big party.
All right.
Okay.
Might be aired after then, but we'll make sure we do. We'll drop a post.
Yeah.
And a promo clip. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, we're excited about that. We got it last year. We were too COVID-y and weird to have a big party, so we got to celebrate all the people that have supported us. Like, can't say enough about during COVID. Like, people just coming to get beer. It's great.
Yeah,
it's really awesome.
Filling growlers at the door.
Yeah, just like Santa hazmat suit, you know.
Yeah.
Like, don't let anybody touch anything. Like, oh
Oh yeah.
You guys probably got a lot of people through COVID.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for your time and like sharing your insights and showing the love you guys have for each other. It's just pretty inspirational.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah.
It's great.
I know. I feel like we've really focused on a lot of like what the struggles were, but I feel super lucky that I could make beer for my neighbors and not need a second job.
And I love people want to see us. Like, people love to see us in here and hang out with us. And yeah, it's great. It feels like a whole set of friends that I would never have had before. And I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so amazing. Yeah. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah,
I think what you've achieved is not easy, as you know. You don't need to tell us. But yeah, it's I think it's huge to be able to do what you love in a town that you love and not need the bonus job to do it too. Yeah,
it's great.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so we are Normalizing Average. We will sign off here, and thank you again to Rumpus Brewery. And
thank you guys.
Drink beer.
Okay, bye guys.